Black-eyed kids encounter. This happened in 2009 or 2010 when I was 7 or 8 years old. Me and my family had just gotten home from Amy City's high school football game. It was around 9 o'clock, dark out, given the fact that it was fall and we lived in the country area of North Texas. I was extremely tired and crashed in bed. It was around 12 o'clock when I awoke to a loud knock at the door and realized that something outside was glowing blue. I went to get the door without alerting my parents because of how little and dumb I was at the time, and I saw an elderly woman there. She had white, grayish brown hair, and she was wearing an old-fashioned light blue dress. Right beside her were two young boys about the same age as me, and the other a couple of years older. The one who was my age was an Asian kid and had sort of a bowl cut. The other was a white boy and had short, dark hair. Both boys had on private school uniforms with the necktie and everything. There was a bright blue glow around them, and there was no way these boys could have been related either. Maybe the white kid was the grandson of the old woman and the Asian boy a friend of his, but they were pretty far apart in age to be friends. The Asian kid looked about 7 or 8 like me at the time. The white kid looked to be between 10 to maybe 13 years old. The woman said, "Can you let us in, dear child? We got lost and need to phone for help." It made no sense, and I started to think it was an early Halloween prank, or maybe they'd gotten back from a wedding or something, knowing how nostalgic the elderly can be. But then I suddenly saw their eyes, which were solid black as the night. The younger boy seemed to make a shocked face that looked to me as if he was saying, "Oh no, we've been figured out." And then the old lady smiled and said, "Please, we're lost and cold and need help." The older boy started crying while she was hugging him, and I realized something about that boy that nearly made me puke. His tears were like black liquid oozing from his eyes. I was about to pass out until I grabbed the door handle, stopping myself. For the first time, the younger boy spoke. "Please, we're lost and cold and need to come in where it's warm." I slammed the door shut, screaming and running for my parents. But when they opened the front door, they were long gone, and so was that creepy blue glow surrounding them. It was the dark country night. I was in huge trouble and got grounded, and wasn't able to go on to my Cub Scout meeting, and had to miss the end of the year party for that semester also. A few weeks later, I thought it was just a weird dream caused by my obsession with scary books at school, until now I found out about the black-eyed children. I'm theorizing the connection between the legend and my experience, and now I believe I may have actually encountered black-eyed children, along with a black-eyed old woman. Unexpected encounter. My boyfriend and I bought a house on the outskirts of the city. About 30 minutes away, 20 minutes further than our home, was an old abandoned army base. This is where a lot of kids and young adults would explore, and everyone would say it was so creepy. That was right up my alley. The thing about the base was that back in the day, it used to be an army base with the main headquarters on a tall hill, and below were homes used to house the military. Also, there was a school, church, recreation hall, and community center down below where the homes were. What made this place so weird was that everything was abandoned except for the homes. These homes were still being used as low-income housing now. To top off the creepiness of it all, every home had a tunnel going from the basement up the hill into the main base. Now, those tunnels are filled in with cement, keeping people from using them, but they're still pretty creepy. My boyfriend had lived there for a brief time with his mom, brother, and 2 sisters when he was about 14. Him and his sisters have stories about seeing things in that house, including a small girl running through the hall to their mom's room. When my boyfriend got up to check it, it wasn't either of his sisters, as they were still in bed, and there was no one in his mother's room. But I digress. One night, we were out at our home with a few friends sitting around the fire pit when someone suggested we go check out the base. It was around 11 p.m., which was a good time to go, as you had to be sneaky about it, as there were still people living at the bottom of the hill, and they would often report you to the police for trespassing. I had never been there, and I was very excited to go. I had heard all the stories, and I'd wanted to go for a while. We all piled into our friend's truck, 5 of us, and headed over. Once we got there, we had our lights turned off and quietly drove into the recreation hall parking lot. We were getting our nerves together to go out and head up the hill, passing around flashlights and looking around to make sure no one was there. We would have to sneak out of the truck and quietly run up the road until it reached the part that had some good tree cover. Just then, someone said, "Hey, what's that light?" We were all looking up the hill, and through the bushes we could see a little light bouncing around. We would see it for a few seconds, and then it would be gone behind the trees, then back again, and then gone. Finally, it was gone for good. We decided, yeah, it was weird, but let's go. Just then, at the road going up the hill where we were going, the part where the trees cleared, we all saw something. We couldn't decipher what it was. A person, a shadow. It was moving. It was coming down the hill towards us. Then we saw it was 3 things. Shadows, people, and something else. These 3 shapes looked a lot like soldiers. They each had what looked like rifles resting on their shoulder as they were walking. It was so dark, and all of us started freaking out. "That looks like soldiers," someone said, followed by, "Are they carrying guns?" We were at the army base, and we were all seriously considering this may be 3 ghost soldiers. When they got closer, we realized they had something on their faces. It was gray and white. As they came closer, it was skulls. They had skulls for faces. At this point, we were all freaking out. They got close enough, still walking down the hill, for us to realize there were 3 large men, not ghosts, holding baseball bats over their shoulders, with black hoodies on and skeleton Halloween masks. We all slouched down as much as we could and peeked over the dashboard and from behind the back seats. As they came off the base road on the house roads, they pulled their masks up and lit up cigarettes, walking back to one of the houses. We were shocked. What on earth were they doing up there? Grown men with baseball bats, dressed like that. It was terrifying. We should have called the police, but I mean, what would we have said? And what proof would we have had that they even did anything? I was worried someone was up there that they'd hurt, or they may have been protecting something up there. But the scariest part about all of this was thinking, what would have happened if we would run up there to them? And the abandoned army base. It still gives me chills. Needless to say, when they were out of sight, we bolted out of there and went home. I still have never seen the army base, and actually a few years ago they demolished it. The other buildings below are still there, and the homes are still being used to this day. I've been back to check out the other buildings, but couldn't get inside. But as I was walking away, I did see a shadow of a man leaning against the side of the building you can't get to, and I wasn't the only one to see him. I knew it wasn't just a person because we could see right through him. Ghost circus performer. Once when I was still in school, probably elementary or middle school, my mom was driving me home from something, and it was dark. When we got to our street, I saw someone standing on the sidewalk in front of my neighbor's house. And that house had been known for decades to everyone that's lived in it to be haunted. By whom or what, they never know. But there was one family that affectionately called one of the ghosts that opened and banged cupboard doors in the kitchen a male nickname, Bob, I think. The figure that was in front of my neighbor's house was dressed oddly, like he'd come back from the circus as one of the players as a rope walker. Tight blue jumpsuit with black stripes and short dark hair. His back was firmly to us, and his arms were tight against his sides, but his legs were akimbo. His feet were also bare, which I thought was odd as well. I couldn't keep my eyes off him. He was dressed and stood so oddly, and thought my mom saw him too. I then noticed that the man was starting to turn his head towards me, and deep dark dread overtook me, so I snapped my eyes away as fast as I could. Mom didn't seem to notice the guy, because she looked at me curiously. When I looked back, the circus guy was just gone. I tried to reason to myself that he jumped off, ran off. It was too fast for me to notice him, and it had been dark. But there was enough lighting in the neighborhood to get a hazy view of pretty much every house if you stood in the right place. I guess he was just one of the ghosts around the neighborhood. It was built decades prior, and my family hadn't been the original owners. I feel presences in my own house, downstairs in the hallway frequently.